let's review. Okay, how is the seafood? How are we going to compete? Why has the seafood consumption stayed flat? Why can't we mimic the explosive growth of the poultry industry? Well, let's look at the poultry industry. Well, look at marketing and scale of operation. Okay, here's what we commonly see where people are marketing seafood. They're here next to the ocean. Here's a bay, and people set up here, take fish right off the ocean, right off the boat, sell them. But the scale, there's no scale there, so there's no economy of scale. But back in 1943, okay, what happened? Well, a guy named Jesse Jewell, he had this vision for how the broiler industry could become successful. And he became successful, okay? And it initiated a period, of 20% growth for indoor chicken broiler businesses for the last 50 years. It's amazing, okay? So back in 43, chicken was very, very, very expensive, okay? And now you go in the supermarket, for the last 35, 40 years, and it's one of the most economical choices of meat. Now, why is that? Also, well, one of the reasons, right, is the broiler industry keeps adapting to the market. And way back here, okay, this is called ready to cook, okay, as in whole broilers, right? So way back then, okay, the ready to cook growth is going up, 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 up. And the growth percentage, though, eventually level off, but this is 5% sustained growth. Okay. And how did they do that? Well, here's the key point, right? Back in the 60s and whatever, okay, the whole broiler was 80% plus of the market. Okay? Cut up was very small. You drop down here, and it's even gone a little bit further than this, right? Is the cut up and the further processing products make up 90% or 95% of the current product mix. They keep adapting, okay? Now, so keep that in mind. We got to adapt to the market. What does the consumer want? Now, let's look at some scale effects. Big farms, large integrated farms, and little farms. 250,000 pounds per year, that's 20,000 pounds a month. That's probably pretty big to a lot of you. This was the size of my farm, my tilapia farm, and this is what I hoped it would grow into, but I never got there. Okay, and you can see, making the point, labor becomes more efficient, feed becomes more efficient because you're buying in larger quantities, and utilities become more cost effective because you're buying them at different scales. Again, also, believe it or not, particularly in oxygen and heat. Okay, so this does pretty dramatic things to scale. Well, if you could get to these large farms, I'm pretty sure that you would be competitive in the fillet market. Here's some costs. These are also a little bit old, dated. This is not too far off. Depends upon the feed price of how big this is going to be. Okay, so but this is where we are. Here's one of the upsides here in terms of long-term future of indoor, or call it aquaculture in general, looking at the different components that make up the cost of feed in terms of the metabolic energy of the diet, the fat, the corn, the soy, fish meal, fish oil. Different commodities have different ratios of those. But you go down here to the blended ingredient cost, dollars per ton. Okay, and yeah, hogs and broilers are by far the cheapest, salmon being very expensive primarily because of the fish meal component and fish oil. But what's our advantage? Our conversions. Our conversions in tilapia and salmon are almost 1-to-1, and conversions on hogs and broilers are around 2-to-1. Okay, so if you either multiply these by 2, because it takes 2 units of feed for every unit of animal versus 1-to-1, 2 times this, call that 300. You can see tilapia will have an advantage and salmon becomes comparable. Can RAS compete? Okay, more particularly, and while you're taking this course, right? And we can. A reminder, the catfish people, pond side, this goes up and down depending upon the year, 70 cents per pound. Farm, pond, meaning whole fish, 45% yield. Tilapia, we would have, in order to be the same as this, because we get a lower yield, we'd have to produce tilapia for 50 cents a pound, which we can't do. So we got to work on our cost of production. And broiler, this is a reminder, okay? Look at this is a mature industry, but look how far they've come. In terms of productivity per person, 1,000 tons, 1,000,000 kilograms per person. In net pens, this is 1/10 of that, okay? And you can imagine it's much, much worse in terms of small-scale production. And a broiler production system, for the labor, the capital costs, the utilities, they're only paying about 10 cents per kilogram for all this combined. It's dramatically cheaper than what we see in fish. Positive side is the broilers take twice as much feed as our fish do, and our productivity per unit space for broilers is only about half what we can do in an indoor fish farm. So that's our advantage. So let's work with it, and the future could be considered to be bright.